Hey class, this video is about section 8.3, which is all about similar figures. And in order to have similar figures, you must have two things. First of all, corresponding angles must all be congruent. And then secondly, when you compare the length of corresponding sides, they must all be proportional, which means that they have to have the same ratio. Okay? Okay, remember when we were learning about congruent figures, we said that corresponding parts are just parts that match up. They're in the same position. So if I'm looking at these two quadrilaterals, ABCD and EFGH, I know that they're similar. That means that all their corresponding angles are going to have to be congruent. So that means angle A is congruent to angle E, B is congruent to angle F, angle C and angle G are congruent, and then lastly angle D and angle H. Okay, so that's just listing out all your corresponding angles. If they are similar, just like the house example we did, the angles will be congruent. Okay, also you can match up corresponding sides. So I did here with colors, AB and EF are corresponding. You could also use the order of the letters to find your corresponding parts. Now what this is saying is if you have similar figures, you can set up some ratios so that it shows a statement of proportionality. This is your statement of proportionality. Basically, if you compare AB to EF, that's going to be the same ratio when you compare BC to FG and CD to GH, etc. All of these ratios will be the same. That's what we call proportional. Okay, so go ahead and jump down to the examples. Again, the important thing here is that they are telling you the two polygons are similar. So because of that statement, I know that all my corresponding angles will be congruent. And also all my corresponding sides will be proportional. Okay, so these aren't facing the same way. I'm going to go ahead and flip this one around so that it matches. Okay, A is the same position as D, so since A is first, D is going to match up with it as well. B is second and E is second, so E is going to match up with B and then F. Okay. Sometimes putting your triangles facing the same way helps you see which angles match up, but don't forget you could also use the order of the letters as a good resource. Okay, so first thing you do is list out all your corresponding angles which are congruent. And then secondly, your statement of proportionality. So I like to start with the first polygon that's given, AB. That corresponds with the side DE. And I know that ratio is going to have to be congruent to BC over EF. And then lastly, CA over FD. Okay, see if you could try examples 2 and 3. They're just like the first couple ones we did, but they're just different shapes. And this one, don't forget that you could rearrange the shape like I did over here if that helps you out. Example 2 on this worksheet is about comparing similar polygons and deciding if two figures are even similar. When you're doing that, there's two things that you have to consider. So first of all corresponding angles must be congruent. If that doesn't occur straight from the beginning, then those figures are not similar. And then secondly, your corresponding sides must have the same ratio. Okay, so go ahead and flip to the back and we'll see what this looks like more specifically. Okay, so I recopied the examples on the front of our paper here so that we can refer to them as we're going through this example. Okay, so like I said before, the first thing that you got to look for is, are the angles congruent, corresponding angles congruent? And in this problem, I can see that A has 2 arc marks as well as X, B has 1 arc as well as Y, and then the remaining angles both have 3 arc marks. So my first criteria is good. Corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, so now I can go ahead and test to see if the corresponding sides all do have the same ratio. So I chose AB to compare to XY. So I'm doing the smaller triangle compared to the big triangle. Alright, and AB over XY gives me 2 over 4, which is 1/2. Okay, now I want to compare the next set of corresponding sides, which would be BC and YZ. From the picture, it's kind of hard to tell that those are even corresponding, so I referred back to my order of the letters given in the problem. And again, BC divided by YZ gives me 4 over 8, which is also 1/2. So far those two sets of corresponding sides both have the same ratio. The last step is to compare the third set of sides and see if they also have the same ratio as the first two. And since we only have two sides left, it's pretty easy to see which ones are corresponding. CA and ZX. CA has a length of 3 and ZX has a length of 6, which also gives us the ratio 1/2. So, based on this work, I can say that the two triangles are similar because all corresponding angles are congruent, and also the corresponding side lengths are proportional. They all have the ratio of 1 to 2. For example number 4, right away I can see that my corresponding angles are congruent since J matches up with 100, A and H, C matches up with K because those are the remaining angles left, and then D and F, G and E. So if I go right around this polygon, my angles are going to correspond. Okay, so my first criteria is done. Now see if you can pause the video, match up the corresponding sides, just like we did on the last example, to see if they all have the same ratio. Okay, this one gets a little tricky because there's so many sides, but I would recommend using, like I said, the order of the letters, or you could use the angles to help you match up the parts. So A, B, those are connected by the angles with one arc mark and the 100 degrees. So one arc mark and 100 degrees on this shape would be HJ. Okay, when you go through all of those that way, you will find that all of the ratios are 2 to 3. So that leads me to believe that yes, the sides are proportional, and that is my second piece of information that I needed. So the answer to question number 4 is yes, these are similar polygons. Okay, go ahead and try number 5. The first thing that you're going to have to do in question number 5 is figure out what the missing angles are, since they only give you 2. So I know that these two angles that are 45 match up, and if this is 90 degrees, this is also going to have to be 45 degrees. If this one is 54 degrees, what is this missing angle? Okay, this angle B comes out to be 81 degrees, which there is no angle to correspond with that. So our conclusion for question number 5 is that no, these are not similar because the corresponding angles are not congruent. And that's all. You don't even have to test the sides because I've already shown that they're not similar. Okay? Okay, in example number 3, this is using similar polygons. So if a question tells you that you've got two polygons, they're already similar, you can use what you know about similar polygons to set up a proportion and solve for a missing side. Okay, so that's exactly what we're going to do here. So first of all, I need to locate my value for x, which is right here. And I know that since this is LK, or KL, that's going to correspond with BC. Okay, so that's why I have those both outlined in purple there. Also, they gave me two other sides, AB and JK, which I know are corresponding also by the order of the letters. So I'm going to set up a proportion just like we did in the last couple days of chapter 8. AB compared to JK is going to have to be the same ratio as BC compared to KL. Then I'm just going to plug in my values, do my cross products. For those of you who don't remember, that's 5 times x equals 6 times 4, and then we solve for x from there. Okay? See if you can set up your proportions for questions 6 and 7, and then resume the video to check your answers. Here are your answers to 6 and 7. Don't forget that colors could be really helpful. Tick marks and diagrams, don't forget about those. That just indicates that parts are congruent. Okay? If you've got any questions on this, we will be spending a few more days on it. But otherwise, I hope this video helped you understand similar figures.